John Fredericks Radio Network. Joining us now, Congressman and Republican 9th District, Morgan Griffith. Congressman, welcome.
It's good to be with you.
So, Congressman, we understand that there might be a deal in the House for additional COVID relief package up to $2 trillion. Now we understand that a deal is being negotiated. Remember, Pelosi wanted $3.1 trillion. The Trump administration offered $1 trillion. Now we're at $2 trillion. But it seems like they might have a deal for that. Seems like they might have a deal. You guys might have a deal for a CR to continue to fund the government through February. What do you make of all this, Congressman?
Well, I hope we do a CR through February. It's kind of interesting because some of the Republicans have indicated they only want one until December. No matter what happens in the election, though, we can freeze spending with the exception of extraordinary bills like the coronavirus bill. We can freeze spending at current levels through February. We ought to take that deal and go with that one. I don't know. We haven't heard anything explicit about a deal being negotiated for additional coronavirus relief. I know it's happening, but what the details are, I don't know. I will tell you, yesterday I got indications that there was going to be a deal because Nancy Pelosi said at one point, we will stay here until there is a deal, which means that she thought they were close to a deal. That's my interpretation. Then later in the day, she said, well, we may call people back. That means that whatever was going on yesterday when she made the first statement, there was a step backward by somebody in the negotiations. The bottom line is we need some additional relief. I don't know that I know we don't need $3 trillion. I'm not even sure we need the $2 trillion, but we need some additional things to help American families, and that's what we're trying to do.
What I understand last night is with the $2 trillion package, it's going to include another round of funding for PPP, which is run out. So many small businesses still suffering. So that would be, even if they got it in the past, they would have access to it again.
And I'm really hopeful that it will allow people to have that second access because that's a key point. It's not just more money for PPP. It's to allow businesses that took it in April and May to get it again because this has lasted longer than we thought.
But are we going to have restrictions on it so that we don't have the Los Angeles Lakers, a $5 billion franchise, getting $100 million?
One would hope so. The problem is the Democrats always talk about taking care of the working man and the American family group, but they often tilt towards the big money people. We'll just have to see. But I would like to see that, yes. I'd like to see some restrictions so that it goes to the families and the small businesses that are struggling to stay open.
Right. So basically you want restrictions on it so it is indeed for small businesses. And, that would be like under, 50 employees or something like that, maybe under 100. I think it should be under 50 and total. Because what they did last time when it was under 500, but they said, per location. So then, franchises like Steak and Shake and Chick-fil-A and others they have under 500 people per location, but they have 1 million locations, or not 1 million, but they have thousands. So, right. They got around this, trading on the stock exchange and things of that nature. And I think when you think of PPP in the second round, you think of small businesses. The people on the corner store, the people that in Salem that own that coffee shop and the local Ace Hardware store with the franchisee that's trying to keep his guys and gals employed. I mean, that's what you think of when you think of PPP and small business, not huge New York conglomerate companies, right?
Absolutely. And that number may need to be 100 employees unless you do some kind of a cap on actual payroll because some of your smaller businesses, I'm thinking about a restaurant in Salem that has, a number of different shifts and they have people coming in working 3 or 4 hours part-time. If all those people counted, or if it was the equivalency of 50 full-time, you'd probably be all right. But I would hate to cut somebody out who's got a lot of workers who may only work the dinner shift, and suddenly they're not going to get in PPP.
Well, probably 100 makes sense then. I mean, you start getting over 100 employees, you're kind of out of the small business category.
You're definitely out of it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you got 100 people that you're paying a week. You're no longer a small business. You're at least a medium-sized business. John Fredericks Radio Network with Congressman Morgan Griffith. Congressman, let's go to politics here as it relates to the House. Any other major agenda items other than a new round of funding for PPP and continuing resolution? Anything else that you're working on?
Well, we may get some bills out. We did 38 bills last week in energy and commerce, most of which were not controversial. I think there were 3 that had some controversy, 2 of them. These are bills that are just good for people, generally speaking, trying to solve problems. Most of them were in the health arena. We'll see if Nancy Pelosi brings those up. She may not, but we're hopeful that they'll come up, just because they're bipartisan. People are in agreement. We think this helps the American family. Why wouldn't we want to get those bills through? But you just don't know around here. Really good bills can suddenly be put on the side because they see it as a vehicle for some political agenda down the road.
The Republicans' chances for taking over the House, I know the Democrats are talking very confidently now. They feel that they're going to maintain control of the House. But then when you go to individual polling and you look at individual races, you don't really get the same feeling. How many House seats do the Republicans need to flip back in order to win control of the House in November?
16, 17 out of 435 total seats, or to flip back out of 200 and some seats, we need about 16 or 17.
Okay, so you need 17 seats, and my understanding is there's 31 Democrats right now in districts that Trump carried in 2016. That's the math that I've got. So out of those 31, you need to only flip 17 of those. Obviously, there's a couple you have to hold. The one being in Northwest Los Angeles, you won. Jeff Van Drew, obviously, switching parties in Cape May, New Jersey. I've factored that into my math. But when you look at the playing field, you say, okay, there's 31 districts that Trump carried in 2016, likely to carry those again in 2020, I believe. And you got 31 Democrats in those, and you only need to flip 17 of them. When you look at it that way, doesn't your odds seem better than the mainstream media is saying?
Absolutely. I think there's a chance. Now, look, it's going to be difficult because we won't get a huge majority if we get one. But I think that there's a significant likelihood that we will pick up seats, and I think it's at least 50-50, maybe a little bit our way, but not much, but at least 50-50 that we take control. But if we take control, I want to make sure that your listeners are aware, we won't have a large margin. So don't expect us to be able to do miraculous things immediately. But if we hold the Senate, take control of the House, and we have President Trump in there, we can get a lot done.
Okay, what is going to be different, though, because 2017, 2018, Obamacare didn't get changed. We never got a health care plan. You got the tax cut through. But why is it going to be different if you have a smaller majority in a Trump second term? Is it because a lot of the never-Trumpers are gone that were resisting some of his policies? Is that one of the reasons?
Well, I think that's part of it. I mean, remember, we got something out of the House to replace Obamacare, and it died in the Senate by one vote. So, and that one vote is now gone. The gentleman passed away. Mm-hmm. But the bottom line is that I do think that's part of it. But we're still going to have some difficulties in the House, even if we, have all three, just because I don't imagine that we'll have more than I'd be ecstatic with a 10-seat margin. But I do think that also gives us some leverage on the other side in that, leadership needs people in the Freedom Caucus as well as they need the people who are on the other wing of the party. So there's going to have to be some compromises, but I think if you have Trump and the Senate, I think we can triangulate and get some really good things done.
What would be your number one priority, Congressman Griffith?
Well, you hate to get down in the weeds, but there's this thing called New Source Review that I've been working on for years, and it's absolutely crazy. It's an interpretation that was made by the EPA decades ago. The same language in two different parts of the code, but for New Source Review, they interpret it that if you're going to change something in your plant, and they say substantial, but their interpretation of that is very fluid. If you change something in your plant, you have to upgrade the whole plant to the latest standards. Well, of course, what that means is plant managers don't upgrade at all. Mm-hmm. And that's causing inefficiencies. It's one of the things that the Trump administration completely supports my reform on that.
Right.
I've had a bill in. We've gotten some traction. EPA has even, tried to get through regulatorily in the areas that they can, my language, and we've worked together on that. That would be my number one objective off the bat, because we have factories that are doing things inefficiently because they're afraid to change what they were doing in 1985 or 1990. They're afraid to change it at all because they can't afford to upgrade the entire plant at one time. As I tried to explain to my Democrat friends, if you let a plant take one bite at the apple at a time instead of having to swallow the whole apple, the apple will get eaten quicker. But they don't seem to understand that, and they don't want to change it. But I think that's something we could get through fairly quickly.
Is that a potential for the 2020 session, or are you talking 2021?
I don't think the Democrats will ever let that out in 2020. We have to have it, even if we just have 2 seats, I think we can get that thing out.
Right. So even if the thing is, even with a 2-seat majority, is getting control of the committee so it can get out of committee.
There you go. And I think we can get it off the floor as well. Won't be easy, but I think we can get it done. And I think it's the right thing, because what it does is it lets factories modernize and reduces pollutants all at the same time. And why the Democrats don't understand that that's helpful, I don't know, except that it sounds, I think they think it sounds like they're backtracking politically. But in reality, it would improve the environment and increase productivity in the United States. It's a win-win.
You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network across America. We're with Congressman Morgan Griffith, Republican, 9th District of Virginia. That's the Southwest Virginia area. Yesterday, we understand in a conference call with her caucus, Nancy Pelosi, your speaker, said that she's going to keep the House in session regardless of how much time it takes in order to get this I guess it would be the third round of a coronavirus bill relief package. We talked a little bit about PPP. The other thing that we heard is in there is another round of direct payments to Americans. I think it's $1,200 per person, and then so much for children, like I think came out last April, was it? Are you in favor of that?
I am in favor of that. I think that's appropriate. I think that the economy needs that shot in the arm. I think that there's still some struggles, and I think the American family needs some help. There are people who don't need it, and folks with higher incomes even before did not receive that money. But I think it's a real shot in the arm. We got to figure out how we're going to pay for it in the long term. There's no question about that. But I do think that it's helpful. We might be able to, reduce that number a little bit, but at the same time, I think we have to help American families. There are a lot who are still struggling. They're getting by, and they're doing better than some might have thought. But there's still a lot of struggle out there, and we want to make sure as we come out of this, as we have a vaccine that comes on board, that we have kept the American economy up and running so that we can take off with a running start instead of having to start from a standstill.
No doubt about that. And regardless of what happens or who wins, in 2021, 2022, you're going to have to deal with this debt. I mean, it's now getting to the point we understand in the fiscal 2021 or 2022, the debt is going to exceed GDP in America, which is that's when you get in the danger zone. But there seems to be there's no appetite for anybody to deal with this. I mean, the Democrats, if they win, I mean, all they do is talk about spending money. I got to tell you, I was thinking about this the other day.
They will raise taxes tremendously. They will. They'll just raise taxes. That's going to be their answer. We'll raise taxes, and of course, that will just kill the economy.
Exactly.
Anyway, sorry.
No, it is. I mean, their answer is going to be to raise taxes, but we've seen in the past sometimes revenue goes down over time when you raise taxes because you get economic contraction, right?
That's correct.
So, but you're going to have to deal with. But I just got to tell you this. I was thinking about this the other day. Every single press release I get from Mark Warner, everyone, is about spending more money. Like, I've never gotten anything from the guy in 24 months about anything other than here's what I'm spending more money on, or trying to spend more money on, or we need more money to be spent on it. I mean, in the past, once in a while, I would get, Accountability Act for the VA or something that he was trying to do. But now it's just all the Democrats do is, how much money can they spend? I mean, eventually this thing, it's just done. So maybe tax increase is the answer to them. And, Biden said he would increase taxes. Hopefully he's not going to have the opportunity to do that. Final question, Southwest Virginia, your district, 9th District. What is the enthusiasm you're finding now for Trump in November? What do you sense, Congressman?
Oh, the enthusiasm is huge. The enthusiasm is huge, and one of the things that we're working on, and the 9th District has just ordered some signs, is making sure that people know that Trump, Gade, and Griffith are all on the same team. And we believe that we can carry big for Trump, carry big for Gade, running against Warner, giving you a conservative alternative there, and then I should win because the Democrats, sensing that enthusiasm, did not run a candidate against me.
Well, you should win when there's no opposition, right? So
one would hope so, but I don't take anything for granted.
I know, man. You still get beat on a write-in, so you got to keep working. The enthusiasm 2016 to 2020, is it the same, or is 2020 higher?
2020 is higher.
Congressman Morgan Griffith, thank you for being with us. Always appreciate your time. We'll see you again next week. Keep up the good work and the good fight in the Fighting 9th District. Like my wife would say, not exactly like the Delaware Fighting Blue Hens, but it still is the Fighting 9th. John Fredericks Radio Network.